Check, check, check.
Okay, here we go, folks. And action.
Welcome to the 401 show, folks. Here we are again this week. What's going on, Dave? How are you?
Great.
It kind
I'm
of jumped
actually
into that
great
one.
today.
How are you
Yes.
guys?
What's up, Sid?
Hi guys.
I'm gonna
Hi,
sit
Helen.
back.
Ladies
Yeah,
and gentlemen,
we've got
Miss Helen.
Helen of Troy. Do you want to be a little incognito, Helen, or do you want to go by Helen of Troy, or do you want me to throw it all out
That's
there?
fine. You can throw it all out
your
there.
your home address too?
No, thank you. That's
Helen
unnecessary.
Bertolis. Her home address is.
No.
And her private cell phone number. Helen, welcome.
Thank
Obviously,
you.
we've known you for a while. Helen's been doing some stuff behind the scenes, and she's going to be helping us now, still behind the
Yep,
scenes, but now
promotions and
on the front of the scenes,
absolutely
both sides of the
Awesome.
pool party.
teamwork.
Yes.
So, what? Everything else good with you guys?
Yeah.
Everything's good.
All right. Before I get started, as usual, I want to thank the powers upstairs.
Man
for,
above.
Again, keeping us from having our cars explode. We have our first sponsor, Tony.
Yay.
Thrive. Do you want to tell us about Thrive for
Yeah.
60 seconds and no longer?
Absolutely.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Thrive is awesome. You guys can check me out at tonyschwartz.lavelle.com. It's a 3-part nutritional supplement. It's very easy. 2 capsules in the morning, a shake 20 minutes later, put on a DFT patch.
What's a
and
DFT patch?
It's the world's only wearable nutrition. So the same way that you see people getting
That's the patch I was wearing then.
correct, yeah, and it's done. It's been a
what
big benefit for
camera?
me.
I tested this product for what, about
2
a week
weeks
or two?
Yeah,
and I felt dynamite.
it's amazing.
It's good. It's good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
it's-
actually going to become a subscriber.
I think you should. Yeah, I think
Which
it's
ties
a great
into
opportunity.
The raising private equity conversation we were having.
Sure. Yeah, I mean that's how it works. Is
Okay, your
networking.
60 seconds are up. So finally,
Absolutely.
the address is
TonySchwartz.lavelle.com.
And
LE-VEL.com. You can check me out there. Yeah, or hit me up on my Facebook at Tony Schwartz or at the 401 show. Just
gotta
send me a
find
message.
we got to find a really good domain name.
Oh yeah,
Maybe Charles can help you with that. He's
I'm
good
sure he
at that.
can. Yeah,
Right? Goody? Greek? Goody?
Yes.
Yes.
for sure.
All right. We're going to start to put some closure on NASA today, and that is really going to be the part of NASA where we're asking the question, what's in our skies and what impact does NASA have on what we think is in our skies? Because, does NASA have a lot of impact on
I
you
would
people? Has
assume,
it had a lot
yeah.
of impact on our lives?
Yes.
Yeah,
Pretty
I think so.
I
incredible.
mean, it's everything we focus on.
All right. So hold that thought. We sometimes put a quote up to get the show started.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a quote from a scientist or a philosopher. Sometimes it's a biblical quote. And I don't think it's ironic, but I wanted to put these 2 quotes out. Not for just for us here, but this is also for anyone listening. Because I had a great conversation with, I'm not going to mention his name, but we made a marketing piece out of it. And this is a buddy of mine that was essentially eye-rolling the things we're talking about the same way I used to eye-roll them. And the conversation I had with him, dear friend from Chicago, but the conversation I had with him, I don't know what night that was when I sent this out, but he was basically like, holy cow, this is really starting to make sense. And he's starting to talk about things like God and Jesus and the Bible because he's looking for answers in this world. And that sort of happened apart from, I did not have, this was like sort of out of the blue from the last time we spoke. And it reminded me a lot because he's going through a hard time right now where the people around him are not receiving this shift very well. Okay?
His change, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, this is why I think you need to understand this is why I personally believe this is the front line of the spiritual war that is going on in the spiritual world that I know at least the 4 of us here, all agree exists.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I tell my friends that I started following Buddha or Gandhi, what do you think the reaction's going to be?
Well, I think most people
Is
be like,
anyone
oh,
going to
okay.
get angry with me?
I don't think so.
Think about that.
Buddha or Gandhi, I don't think people are going to be angry with you. Why would they be angry?
That's my point. Yet, let's go back 2,000 years and look at a prediction, 2 of them, in fact, that were made by this nondescript carpenter named Jesus from this place called Nazareth. So the dude's about to die, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to read the quote and then read the passage that's in the book. So this is from Matthew 10:22, which says, "You will be hated by everyone because of me, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved." And then the backstory goes on to read, 2,000 years ago, a certain man predicted that if you followed him, you'd be hated. How could a man know he'd be so famous and so polarizing that his followers would be hated? No other religious figure has this characteristic, nor did any of them make such a strange claim, nor are any of their tombs empty. It was an uncomfortable truth for a while. This is the personal part for me. No matter your position on the true identity of Jesus Christ, it's pretty impressive to see these words written 2,000 years ago that are provably true, at least in my personal opinion. And one other passage I want to do, because the Bible is very formulaic. They don't say something once. They repeat it. You can find it. This is why it's a flawless messaging system, because you can remove an entire book and the entire message still will get through. John 15:18-19 says this. So this was written, these were words spoken by Jesus Christ. It went into print around 85 AD. And again, think of what is being assumed in this conversation. Because he's saying this right now to, I don't know where he said this, but I'm going to guess this was his inner circle. He said this: if the world hates you, now when they say the world, he's talking about the world and the people of the world system. If the world hates you, know that it has hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. And here's the backstory. He, meaning Jesus, he didn't say many people would probably remember me. His statement implies that he knew he'd be world famous after his death. He repeated this several times. And I have observed this personally and on the news and vouch that it's a truthful statement. It's a pretty bizarre prediction for a nondescript carpenter who was executed by the Romans along with hundreds of thousands of others across their empire. What's even more bizarre is that he was right. This is one of thousands of predictions that, at least this is why your relationship with God is personal, I believe. But like I said, I don't think there's any more information I'm going to find that is going to turn me off of this road, because I now understand your soul's at play. Have you guys felt any pushback yet in your personal lives when I know I was uncomfortable saying the word Jesus when I first started to realize he might be involved. What about you guys? Are you guys there at all? Or still not even ready to talk about it?
I talk about it all the time, man. I can't say that I have had that, where it's really the persecution. I know that it does happen, and it's a constant thing for Christians around the world. But in my own personal life, no, I've always I'm sure there's people that would question it, with my history. You know what I mean, of coming from a fallen man, essentially. But I would say that would probably be more the thing. Well, I guess what I'm saying is if somebody believes in me or not, or believes that that's what I believe. But I'm the type of guy that I don't care who talks about me. You know what I mean? If it's good or bad, at least you're talking about me. You know what I mean? If you're spending your time on me, I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? I can play in your head. I can own that real estate. I'm cool with it.
Well, I believe you. Any thoughts or comments from you guys?
I don't know. I can feel like like how I was bringing up on the last episode, like the closer you get to realizations or something, there is like a push and a pull thing, you know, where it gets harder. Like things, it's just like a test. Like I call it like the crossroads in life. Like life will give you like a choice to like go back to your old ways or, you know, like continue along the path. You know, it's not always easy to keep going, but it gives you that choice, and that's what free will is, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get back to that one. Good point. Helen, anything you want to say about this? Or
I've experienced the push and pull also with spiritually, with the spiritual warfare. I would say yes, I have experienced the push and pull lately. I'm not going to go into details, but personally, yes, I do believe.
And we will
I
look,
have.
and that's why. And the unbelievable thing is, there's so many crazy things that are addressed in this book that, because the world used to love me, like I liked the world too, and I tried to navigate and negotiate. It still even happens now. Trying to live life with one foot in the world and one foot out. It is, I think the Bible's going to end up proving itself true again, that it's impossible. You will at some point have to make a choice. You're either completely, essentially God's, and if you're not God's, then you are the world's, because the world right now is, who's the God of the world right now?
Lucifer.
It's Lucifer. It's Satan.
It's so weird, though. You know, that's a tough thing to come to terms with too, because there's so much beauty in the earth, and I think you still, the free will allows you to create your own world in a way. You know, if you push them away.
Right now, put it like this: there is beauty in the earth, and there is goodness on earth, and there is also evil on earth. You can see both spirits at work.
Yeah.
And for some people, this is as close to heaven as they will ever get. And for some people, this is as close to hell as they will ever get. And the two outcomes that are written about in this book, which has predicted all the future, like no other book has done in history, it's got that characteristic. It predicted the entire future of humanity ahead of time. It is very clear and says that there are two places you can go that are not like the earth at all, because one place only has the properties of the Creator God, and the other place only has the properties of the rebellious God. And Sid, what you said, free will. The rest is free will. What we do in this lifetime, that is the free will that we exercise. And that free will ends with our last breath. But let's be clear about something. When Shirley MacLaine walks along a beach saying, "I am God," I guarantee you she has no control over where her soul goes. She is not a God. She's just a human being like we all are. And it would seem, it's not going to be the topic of our show today, but it would seem that someone made us, which means we have a creator, which means it's the same reason your dog has to listen to you when you bring him home from the pound, because you own him. Any thoughts about that? So be prepped, because it's going to happen. And it is going to polarize you. It's going to force you. You are, Sid, going to end up having to make a decision.
Yeah.
And this, it's funny, but
No, I don't know. I do feel like I'm like being forced to grow up right now, like really fast. I don't know. Like, it's not like I'm an immature person, but I feel like I've been stuck in this place for a long time.
Sure.
Like, and I'm very prideful in it.
yeah, that was one thing that God will remove from. If you're going to be His, He's going.
Yeah, I have
to
nothing to be proud of anymore.
No, but you
know?
do. I mean, you have a career. You're
I
a
get that,
successful
but
model. Like,
At a point that was taken. I mean,
Right,
there was a point where, you know, your knees are in the dirt, and
you're
it's like,
fitting a
what does
common
that matter?
characteristic. A common characteristic of every saved person that was written about 2,000 years ago, and every saved person, to a man, every last one I've talked to, we mentioned this on air last week, is going to be humbled. And that's right when I made the joke, like, look, man.
It's like a midlife crisis before you hit 30.
Yes.
Get you. You're gonna have a few of it. Ask Jimmy, Tony, and Charles.
It's
Man,
literally
the-
like a midlife crisis before you even hit
You're
30.
an early life crisis.
And when you're a model,
Don't worry about
30
my
is
feelings,
like
Sid. I'm
52
fine.
in like real life human years. So it's like it's all downhill
we're in dog
from
years.
there for me.
But how about this? Maybe God has this
Maybe
awesome
there's a new
plan
beginning.
where He's like, you know what? Because I've had this eye on this
I have
girl.
like a year, God.
No. Another thing is your timeline. Take it because these are. If you want to learn from my mistakes, you're on His timeline, not yours.
Yeah, no, I was
That
just,
one caused a lot of problems too. Okay, so we paint dots every week. We typically do it through the avenue of Ephesians 5:11 by uncovering the fruitful deeds of darkness, which is another fancy way to say we really talk about conspiracies on this show because almost all of them are fueled by two things that are the main elements of the spiritual world, by truth and by deception.
Yeah.
Okay? A conspiracy, if it is flat out just not true. You know, if I tried to start a conspiracy tomorrow that palm trees were really covert aliens waiting to attack Earth, I guarantee you I would not have 1,000 followers.
Maybe.
But no, that's what they want us to think would happen. Every conspiracy in the world, even the ones I don't understand yet, by and large, are fueled by truth. They're not fueled by a desire for income or wages or notoriety. They are simply fueled by people that were there that saw something that disproves the commonly believed story. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about fluoride or Flint water or what's going on at NASA or history books. Those
Comes
two
back to
elements
Jesus.
are constantly at play. So we're going to keep painting. We are going to keep painting dots. And I'm not even going to go into my parable of the blind man today. We'll save time. We're going to jump right now into NASA and the part of the show, which we've been trying to get to for a long time,
Yes, sir.
which was tied to one of our taglines, which is removing truth's protective layers. That was from a speech given by, anyone want to take a guess who said it?
Nope, I think I got this answer wrong. It's the last time you asked it.
That was a speech given by Neil Armstrong in 1994. We're going to look at a few things. Before we get to his 1994 speech, let's take a look at what he looked like in 1969. And we're going to start off by refamiliarizing ourselves with Apollo 11. Because there are three particular Apollo missions. If you look at just those three, you're going to find out pretty much everything you need to know about NASA. You'll learn it for yourself. And my suggestions are to look at Apollo 1, Apollo 11, Apollo 13. I think we went up to Apollo 17, which was the last manned mission to the moon, I believe.
Those are great numbers.
1,
11 and 13.
Yes.
depending on the spirit that's in you, yeah. Maybe. I don't know much about numerology, and I don't want to get too sidetracked. But Apollo 11, holy cow, worldwide event. Not just the USA, but man reached the moon. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and I think it was Michael Collins. They landed on July 20th. This is not my note, but they did get 47 pounds of rock. And they got back to Earth July 21st. And Armstrong was the guy that said, that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. We, of course, actually, maybe not of course, but we did not see the first take of this is one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. But we're going to see it today because some lighting fixtures fell on Neil Armstrong the first time he did it. Very strange for the moon to have that. Here's Tom Brady. I believe, how many Super Bowls has he won? 7? 6?
6,
Okay.
I think.
All right.
I'm not positive, to be
Okay.
honest.
So he's been to this rodeo before. He still gets pretty excited, right? All right. Now here's a photograph of the press conference. Oh, and this is Neil Armstrong in 1969, who, by the way, Just putting it out there.
Got a little Mason logo on
Happens
there.
to be a member of a secret society that is built on keeping secrets. Okay. You have just accomplished the greatest feat in human history. You have just been asked to sit down at a table in front of a room filled with about 500 reporters that just gave you a standing ovation that went on for about 10 extra minutes. These are the first images taken. We're going to actually watch the first question on video. But what do you guys see when you see that picture? Does this look
Concern.
Looks like he's bummed out.
Is this three men that just accomplished the greatest, or is this three men that got caught cheating on a test?
Yeah, the guy in the end looks like he's
They're all
And
depressed
they're anxious,
looking. Yeah.
concerned.
looking down. They're all looking down.
Yeah,
Because
like guilty
truth's
looking.
Yes.
Many
Buzz is rereading the
protective
notes.
layers was mouthed by one of these three men 25 years later. And the strange thing is that man, after this public appearance, essentially made 0 public appearances for the next 25 years. Wow. How strange. He's supposed to be one of our greatest heroes. Many stills from that day capture that feeling we showed in the still. But I don't like stills because, Sid, you're in modeling. You know one picture taken at the right moment can tell one story, and a millisecond later can tell a completely different one.
Yeah, and it can be manipulated too.
Fair enough. So when you're looking at this, I was not thinking this way when I first looked up, so you guys are going to get a little hint. But understand how the human mind has to reconcile lying. Hitler understood something. And this is why he said, big lies work. Because the human mind is built to think that small little exaggerations are okay. Little white lies, those are acceptable. It's okay to go from we would never kill a baby to a first trimester abortion.
Right.
To
Step
a
it up.
second try, to a third. Now we're killing them out of the womb. Okay. We can do these things we can lie to ourselves in a lot of different ways, and we can get desensitized to it, and we can over time learn to
Accept more and more.
But at the end of the day, even when you're being asked to lie, and I know this is true for me, or when I feel I have to lie, I still try to word things in a way that I'm still telling the truth, even if I know the impression I'm giving is not.
Wordplay.
Did you understand what I'm saying? Does this resonate with anyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like an innate. It's like maybe when God says, "I wrote my heart on every human's heart." Maybe that's why that bothers us.
Right.
Some people so much, and some people, knowing that there is mistruth or deception in the world, will drop everything to try to correct it because it matters so much. And I know that's true for almost every conspiracy theorist out there. So let's take a look at this. We're going to watch a couple minutes of this press conference, and we're going to watch the first question. Now, our live audience won't be able to hear this, but we will have this in the produced show. So let's see what we get. Tony, you might need to have the volume ready on that thing.
Yeah.
Maybe turn it up.
Followed by question and answers.
They just sat down
At
after
this time,
standing
I'd like to
ovation.
introduce the Apollo 11 crew, astronauts Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, Edwin Aldrin. Neil?
It was our pleasure to have participated in one great adventure. It's an adventure that took place not just in the month of July.
Now he's saying adventure. He's not saying going to the moon. Just pick up little clues.
But rather
What's that?
one that took
Oh,
place
it does?
in the
Wonderful,
Soviet
Jim.
We all here and the people listening in today had the opportunity to share that adventure over its developing and unfolding in the past months and years. It's our privilege today to share with you some of the details of that final month of July that was certainly the highlight for the three of us of that decade.
Okay.
Of
You
that
get the
decade.
picture? What are your impressions when you... What are your impressions?
He's very, in my opinion, he's very. He knows exactly what he's trying to say. He's choosing his words
He's
wisely.
scripted, and he's like very careful in his wording. He's very slow. I feel like he's like really like not trying to slip up. Like
Legal.
he's reading a script. Like yeah, and he doesn't want to say the wrong thing. That's what he seems like.
I think he's trying to find a way to say the truth.
I think he's trying to serve two masters.
He's trying to
He's
find-
obviously, it seems, getting pressure to remain inside of a lane, and he's trying to do that, but it's hard to tell. These are all assumptions. This does not prove the moon landing was a hoax, okay? There are enough guys that look at the scientists. There's plenty of that out there.
That's why he calls it an adventure.
Now, exactly.
Right.
Because you can say that and not be a liar, because from his perspective, wow, has this been an event? I've been paraded in front of the world as a superhero, but at the end of the day, I am part of the biggest lie in history, and he himself may not know. These are my assumptions, because some people might think we did land on the moon. My opinion about that is irrelevant. Okay, 25 years later, the man has made almost no speeches. He's been completely out of the public eye, but it's the 25th anniversary of the Apollo 11 mission at the White House.
And this is what year?
1994. This is under Bill
Okay.
Clinton. We're going to listen to two sections here. And here's what I want you guys to focus on. The first section, he makes some very interesting opening remarks about a parrot. Saying, and you got to understand, he hasn't
Mockingbird.
spoken in 25 years. He is talking to a room filled with college students that are visiting the White House that day. The press, there's a massive press corps. Okay, this is a big White House function. All the other Apollo 11 astronauts are there. Same thing again. We're not going to play the standing. He got an overly long stand ovation just like last time. But this time I suspect he's writing his own speech. Think of all the things you can say. It's one of the few words you've given to the world in 25 years. Here's what he says.
Here in the only, ladies and gentlemen, Wilbur Wright once noted that the only bird that could talk was the parrot, and he didn't fly very well. So I'll be brief.
It's almost like you just look back at someone that cares about what he's saying, but who knows? But what I consider, the human sheep, which is what we all are, were at some point or are, I just don't think that they viewed that as a very superficial joke. But I think that anyone that's involved in art,
Mockingbird.
everyone that's involved in art puts messages into their art that is very deep. Words for writers are chosen very carefully. Colors for painters are chosen very carefully. Jimmy knows about setting up shots in a film. They all have different implications. These are not, in my opinion, casual words. And I think the next part we want to go to is at 420. And as he's saying this, he starts to tear up. This is where our tagline of truth's many protective layers comes from.
Navigating in space and descending to a planet unencumbered with runways and traffic controls would include the major requirements necessary for a spacefaring people. Today, a space shuttle flies overhead with an international crew. A number of countries have international space programs. During the space age, we have increased the knowledge of our universe 1,000-fold. Today we have with us a group of students among America's best. To you, we say, we've only completed a beginning. We leave you much that is undone. There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers. There are places to go beyond belief.
Okay, we can end it there. So, what do you guys make of that?
I want to keep watching it. I don't want to stop. There are places to go beyond belief.
Right.
We'll watch another 20 seconds, but I think
Yours. In many fields, not the least of which is space, because there lies human destiny.
Okay, I just wanted to hear the rest of his sentence at least.
I actually didn't know it wrapped up that fast, otherwise I would have let it play out. So do you think he's maybe just nervous and just kind of saying these things on a whim and they're just not coming out right? Or why say a parrot? What does a parrot do?
Mimic.
Repeats.
It repeats what it
Repeats the same message. Yeah.
and it doesn't fly very well.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah. Like
So
the story's falling apart. Sorry.
there was an exercise and I removed it from this episode where I wanted to put ourselves. Sorry about that. I wanted to put ourselves into the shoes of Werner von Braun. We're going to save that for next week, but we're going to look at what must happen, what goes on in the mind of someone who's in such an influential position, who's got a lot of eyeballs on him, who's got a lot of cameras on him, how he handles, because this, assuming the words he said on his deathbed and what is on his tombstone, and these are all parts of a theme that he was trying to communicate his last 3 years, which is there is a massive deception coming and NASA is heavily involved. If you discover that once you're into NASA, what do you do? Do you hold a press conference? Do you maybe start asking some coworkers, hey, do you break sanctified NASA law and go talk about what another department's working on and compare notes?
Whistleblower, you mean?
I'm just asking,
Going undercover, basically.
what do you do when you're a man? See, if you saw last week's edited episode, there was this little part.
Or Tucker.
Thank you. The
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson revelation. Because obviously in 2006, when Tucker Carlson was just, again, he was doing his job. He was being the parrot that Neil Armstrong is referencing here.
Mm-hmm.
And that segment proved that Tucker Carlson is selling us emphatically the idea that Building 7 is irrelevant to 9/11, yet it was proven just a few years later that the most important smoking gun / piece of evidence in the
Building 7.
entire 9/11 story is Building 7, and he wasn't even aware of it.
Right.
So sometimes you think, oh, these guys that are on TV, that are at NASA, they're in the middle. I have a friend who works at NASA who has no idea about this stuff.
Yeah.
I have my best buddies.
They're
in
innocent
FBI.
bystanders.
I think
They're
it's very
They're
common.
deceived as
pawns
well.
in the game
And-
of chess,
yeah.
and they're
And
just
the
doing their
president
job.
or
They're just
presidents,
following orders.
They're even deceived.
Sure. I agree with all of that, Dave. I think
And-
that nobody knows what's really going on. in
Even if
certain
I were a
projects.
president, what would you do? I might give a speech saying that
It's bullshit.
secrets are terrible. Secret societies are bad. Oaths to secret societies are bad. We are facing a monolithic conspiracy that's threatening the world. Some people that don't want the truth out will tell you, oh, he was referencing communism. But unless you want to wear a dunce cap. He is not, because he references communism in another part of that speech. He is talking about who we talk about. They've had many names throughout history. We call them the Illuminati. Jesus called them the synagogue of Satan. In Kennedy's day, they were known as the establishment. These are the elites These are the pedophiles of this world. This is who we're hoping Q brings down. But at the end of the day, understand something. Right now, this still is Satan's world. He is in charge of it. And believe me, he has complete control over the media. If not for a million little shows like what we do,
No one
we
would
are in
know
an
it.
Orwellian nightmare.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's getting tougher and
And
tougher.
you can see,
It's coming.
you're starting to recognize, you recognize a spiritual war. You see it yet. Everything that was predicted and warned against in these ancient scriptures, which, again, evidence of a spiritual nature. Why the hell people will avoid reading that book? They'll go out of their way. I did it. You did it. Why? I mean, this potentially, some people out there believe, before I knew a damn thing, when I thought of it logically, this potentially is a document written by a hyper-intelligence, and it was left here for us on purpose. But I'd been convinced that it's a bunch of crap. No, that's not true for any other document.
Well, you're right. You're right.
Think about this.
Because I think a lot of people will spend the time to pay attention to the seven wonders of the world, and that's, you can see that. You can see the pyramids. You can explain that they're there, right? And I think that's a big belief system that people can't grasp. But you're right. The Bible's there for us to explore, and it tells you that you should be studying.
My point is let's say the only thing I'm trying to put a light on is until I was the age of 42, I essentially had a negative magnetism to that book. I didn't want to look at, and when I just think about it in a cold, clinical, logical way, it makes no sense. It was completely illogical. Meaning, I am right, and as these things were happening, I was recognizing the brainwashing that had been working on me my whole life. And once you completely pop out of it, you can look back and you now can see the forest for the trees.
Were these astronauts men of faith?
Great question. We're going to get to that in 1 second. Perfect lead in. Okay. Have you guys ever found it odd that they write a press release for a potential tragedy before the tragedy happens?
Yes.
It happens all the time.
It does
in the
happen
form
all the
of drills.
Hang on. How often? I only know about really 3 cases in history, and I'm going to show you 2 of them here. Now, maybe there are others you can just. I know of Eisenhower on D-Day writing a letter in case his invasion was not successful. The only other place I've seen that, because I haven't also looked for this, is there are 2 particular Apollo missions that we're going to look at and ask some logical questions about, because they had a press release written about the mission's failure while it was actually in flight. The concept, though, of writing a press release, writing a message about a project's failure before the project's outcome is concluded, does that sound logical to you?
Of course, yeah. Why would you be
So
looking
if your
for the
CEO,
negative?
Charles, said, hey, all right, we're going to be launching this new platform, but what I'd like you to do is write a press release in case it ends up not working and we have to close it down. I wonder if during 9/11, someone in our administration, now granted, Apollo 13 was stretched out over 4 days, and 9/11 was stretched out over 1 day. But could you imagine, like, after the first building fell, like, it occurring to someone to go, oh, gosh, we better go write a press release in case the second building falls? Could you imagine if your mom was just in a bad car accident and she was in an operating room and we don't know how it's going to turn out? Could you imagine yourself making any funeral arrangements yet?
No, not
As a
at
human.
all. Yeah,
Okay.
it'd be morbid.
Now, something happens when we're told something over the television, this big gray area of misunderstanding connects all of the dots that the television, the mainstream media paints for us, which when you go investigate the gray area, you find out, whoa, that's not how these dots connect. Because I'll say something, as both someone that is an individual, I could never imagine writing such a press release or even expending 1 ounce of energy on anything negative like that. Ever. I've never seen it in my experience. I have never heard this at any how to be successful in business press conference. The only thing I can comment on that is I've been the guy who's at the top of an organization, the largest one I've ever been involved in, had 200 people below me. And I could never imagine, I don't think it's a responsible thing to put that much effort into proposed failure of something. Nonetheless, it's the government, and there's processes that we simpletons don't understand. Okay. I'm going to read you a press release. Now remember, what was the date of the Apollo 11 takeoff? Do you guys remember?
The 16th.
16th. Good eyes, Sid. This is written on July 18th. Okay? Now, this is Apollo 11. This was the successful one, the first one. We got there and back. Okay? Don't confuse this with the next press release I'm going to read you, which is Apollo 13. That is the mission that we all think we know about because they made a movie out of it. And that's the one that got damaged in flight. So we're still this is Apollo 11. 2 days into the mission. Think about this. I'm going to read you this letter. This was written to H.R. Haldeman, who I'm going to guess was Nixon's press or chief of staff. But he ultimately ended up, I believe, going to prison in the Watergate scandal. And Bill Sapphire is an insider at NASA. I'm almost positive about that. I'll verify it for the edited version. These guys are 2 days out. Everything's going well. Someone decides to put some effort into this following letter. In event of moon disaster, fate has ordained that men who went to the moon to explore in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace. These brave men, Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin, know that there is no hope for their recovery, but they also know that there is hope for mankind in their sacrifice. These two men are laying down their lives in mankind's most noble goal, the search for truth and understanding. They will be mourned by the families and friends. They will be mourned by their nation. They will be mourned by the people of the world. They will be mourned by a Mother Earth, that dared send two of her sons into the unknown. In their exploration, they stirred the people of the world to feel as one. In their sacrifice, they bind more tightly than the brotherhood of man. I love how Mother Earth, New World Order as one, and here's the last one. In ancient days, men looked at stars and saw their heroes in the constellations. In modern times, we do much the same, but our heroes are epic men of flesh and blood. Anything strange about that letter?
That's crazy. I don't know.
How many men are they talking about losing in this particular press?
2, and
Wait,
there's
how many men
3.
were on the mission?
Right.
There's 3, but didn't one stay up? Didn't one stay in the capsule?
So maybe then we should find other press releases that would have included all 3, or maybe just one guy died.
Well, I mean, if 2 are going down in the lander,
Okay.
is what I meant by it.
So
like
maybe
Israel's crash.
So what they thought was the riskiest part of the mission, they'll just have a press release written for just that part.
Well, I'm
Because
assuming.
how many, by that logic, only 2 names are mentioned here.
Right.
Aldrin and Armstrong. Where's Michael Collins' name? Okay.
Well,
I guess they were
you could
certain that
lose
the
them all, obviously.
So what I'm saying is, if we follow logic, there should be really probably, if you're going to put effort into this and do the job properly, like people should do at NASA, there should be then a press release that addresses just Neil Armstrong. There's one
Sure.
just for Buzz Aldrin.
Yes.
There's one just for Michael Collins. Then you need, looks like they're getting into combos, because this combo has Neil Armstrong and Aldrin. So we'll need one that has Armstrong and Collins. Then we'll need one that has Aldrin and Collins.
If you're gonna
Do
do
you
them all,
understand-
yeah, I'm with you. Yep.
Okay.
If you're gonna do them all at the same time, if you're gonna write these just
No.
in case, so you have it worded correctly for the public.
And you're doing this 2 days after the missions. Really?
Yeah.
Okay. How about this? Here's my theory, and I know we don't like hearing theories, but maybe these 3 guys knew what they were getting involved in.
And
They
they
were
got a
maybe
warning.
threatening to talk about it and to let them know how serious their situation was. Because Michael Collins maybe is in. It's just a theory.
He didn't look like he was in. His ass looked just as nervous
Well,
as they did.
He might be in, i.e., with his soul. He may have pledged, look, I do not agree with this, but no, I'm not going to have you kill my family. And if you saw the edited episode from last week, you know that they will kill your family and then make it look like you did it and then shoot you twice in the back of the head. It's like sending a message to people like us that know you can't get shot twice in the back of your head, like, we'll kill you. And to the sleeping masses, it just looks like, oh, some crazy guy somehow figured out how to shoot himself twice in the head. What a crazy world.
Yeah, I don't even know if it goes that far.
So what I'm wondering is, and when I go back and look at this picture, that's Michael Collins, Neil Armstrong,
Yeah, look at how Collins got his hands.
Buzz
he's-
Aldrin. Maybe while these guys are literally in some safe house for 4 days while the mission's supposed to be going on, or maybe one of them's threatening not to do the filmed rehearsal, because I'm going to show you some images of that. These guys are. You want to know if we're serious? Here's the letter we just sent to the White House.
Mm-hmm.
If you do not go along with this letter goes out tomorrow, and you never will. Now, see, the guy I see in this press conference up here, that to me is a guy that is in a moral quandary.
They're both looking at their notes, and it almost seems like they're trying to kick, as you said earlier, Helen, the script.
Yes.
They're staying on target of what they're to say and what they're not to say, like a legalese.
So the only press release I could find on Apollo 11 was that one that seemed to focus on the lunar lander separation and the extra risk, I guess, in actually landing on the moon, and they didn't address the other parts. All right, now let's go to Apollo 13. All right? This mission goes haywire, like first day in, I think. We've all seen the movie.
Just Tom Hanks and Gary Sinise, right?
In the
Yes.
movie, yeah.
Okay.
So
In the movie, yes.
this one I can understand a little bit more. I don't have the date on this, but this was also made while they were in flight. Reads like this. This was the official PR release. If the astronauts unable to get back safely. And it reads, on behalf of the people of the United States, I wish to thank you for your kind message of sympathy concerning the death of the Apollo 13 astronauts. Even though it has long been recognized that space exploration, like all of the great pioneering ventures throughout men's history, involves possibility of losses, we are deeply distressed at the death of these brave men. After the cause of the accident had been thoroughly analyzed and corrected, we look to the completion of the goals of this mission. Here again, all of NASA is scurrying around. They're trying to jerry-rig breathing connections that were meant for a re-entry vehicle that exists in an orbital lander that they're not going to have access to forever. Every guy has been woken up. He's at his post. I just don't believe that they also woke up the PR guy to go, hey, why don't you start writing something right now just in case? Because honestly, notes like this take 3 minutes to write. It's just not a natural human frame of mind.
What you're saying is the comparison from that conversation to the last press release? Is that?
I'm just saying this, that who the hell knows what really happened on Apollo 13? But the mission survived a failure in space, which is pretty freaking incredible. Because at the end of the day, what we have been taught is this. And I'm going to show us a picture of, this is a picture supposedly from the moon, of the actual lunar this thing right here. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I just had to write about this one. Along with a calculator and a pencil, this foil ship won the space race by traveling 500,000 miles without even hitting a speck of dust, which at their speeds, about 20-some thousand miles an hour, would have utterly disintegrated the ship. Look at that piece of cardboard and foil. Okay? That won the space race, really? Come on. So there were, it's interesting, but I don't have a position on whether we've been to the moon or not. I haven't studied it enough. I've literally only put 200 hours in it. I'm not trying to sound facetious. There's a lot to cover. But it's hard to do.
Well, I have watched a video that does point out all the anomalies. That there's no big crater under it. If you were landing, there should be like a cone under
We're going to get to just a few of those that, again, dude, when you start to wake up, it's probably because you're asking questions. I mean, how did you start to wake up, Sid?
Asking a lot of questions, very young.
Why do you think you cared and other people, you can tell them about Flint water, for instance, and they just shrug their shoulders and move on? Why do you think you care?
I think I'm meant to care. I think there's something I'm supposed to do about it. I think there's a reason it makes me uncomfortable, and other people are able to live day to day, and it doesn't bother them.
See, for me, that's like evidence. There's something written on your heart that you saw as so unjust or so untrue or whatever that you had to do something about it.
Yeah, it changed my life the day I came to the conclusion, or I researched it enough to be like, oh my God, this is just mind blowing. Yeah.
Look, and I understand that because it happened to me. So if you guys saw that last episode, you got an idea of what my life was like before. And I guarantee you, when I was in the world, that was a lot easier. That is easier. Frankly, it's a lot easier to
look
be
ignorance is bliss
in the world.
They say that
because it's not. But when you got to realize if you are going to get hooked up with God, you are just a pilgrim moving on through. You're not home. This is as close. No one right now is home. We're all going to one or two places. Do we need to take a break? What time we got? How are we doing on time?
You got about it.
15 minutes? Just power through? Or do you guys want to take a break?
Is he set up to take a break?
Want to keep going, Jimmy? Do you want to take a break, or are we going to keep going? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Going back to 1947. No, we'll address that later. Okay, now let's go to Apollo. We've talked a little bit Apollo 11, the successful moon landing, but there were 10 missions before Apollo 11, obviously. We talked about Apollo 13. So you guys remember Apollo 1?
A lot of these I'm not very familiar with. It's something that I really like to get back and research to see, what they say is technology, and look for myself now. I do realize that all this happened, but a lot of this happened before I was born. So that these things happen through school, right? But unless you really, do the research.
My kid about 9/11. I'm like, wow, it's so weird. You weren't even there. It was like such a vibrant day.
Correct.
What about you guys? Any impressions you have when I say Apollo 1? Anything in...
No. I mean, it says 67. That was like around the time my mom was born. So, I mean, that's the only reason I know that period of time. And so she hasn't ever mentioned anything. She's not knowledgeable in any of this stuff. So that's probably the only reason I would know anything about it. And so I don't know.
Okay.
I think most people, you hear about, like, say now, you hear about these new launches that are taking up satellites or whatever. You hear you see the quick blurb on TV and you move along.
Right. So I didn't know much about Apollo 1 either, but I found a few interesting things. Not this week, but this was before.
Mm-hmm.
So the man on the left here is an astronaut by the name of Gus Grissom. Ever heard of him?
I've heard that name.
No.
Famous astronaut. He would have been, if you've ever seen the movie The Right Stuff, which was the story of the early days of NASA and the test pilots that became astronauts. He is one of the main characters.
Okay.
I don't know who plays him, but so this is a very famous astronaut. And remember what we said earlier in the show about you're in the public's eye and you discover something that changes you. Everyone at NASA and Apollo, and everyone, the word on the street from the White House to every major mainstream media outlet is saying we're on, we're going to the moon, we're going to make it, we're going to beat the Russians, we're doing it this decade. And Gus Grissom is out there going, guys, we have no chance of making it to the moon. I mean, this is a farce. We haven't even... And things that NASA was saying, he's coming out and contradicting it, saying what they said there is wrong, what they said here is wrong.
Oh, they offed him.
Now, they don't... What I've learned by studying this enemy, they don't do it at night in your sleep. They're going to do it in front of the world. They're going to shoot you when your limo's windows are down. Okay? So these guys are in their capsule. And what's incredible, and I don't think this is an accident, but I went and read the mainstream media articles that came out in those days. Again, thank you, Internet. We can go back and read the story of the day. And there was a common element I found in about 15 different newspaper articles. The amount of space that was focused on the screams of terror that were heard coming out of that capsule as that thing burned. It was very odd, very dark. And again, to see that Columbia's lost, Columbia's lost, Columbia's lost, Columbia, when you start to see these patterns. This is what I'm talking to you. When you study these things to the level of becoming a counterfeiting expert, you start to notice these things a lot more quickly. So what I suspect happened, just my theory, if NASA really is this evil organization, and that really is supposed to represent a serpent's tongue cutting through the logo, and NASA really means deception in Hebrew, and if it really does look like they're deceiving us on some levels, whether that's the ISS or all these moon landings, you're now starting to sound like something that has all the characteristics of where evil comes from. And this book that I refer to a lot has some very specific thoughts about where it comes from. And this, to me, matches up perfectly with their MO. So Gus Grissom is killed. They go out of their way to have photographs of the burned equipment. Were they religious? Yes. They were all, I don't know if they all were, but at least one of them was a Mason. I think all three of Apollo 1 were. And here they're praying their pyramid. Yes, it is the space capsule. But that doesn't smell Christian to me, for what it's worth. I don't think that's what's going on, but that's irrelevant. What is interesting, remember last week we talked about Larry McDonald?
Yes.
If you guys
Plane
saw
crash.
the edited episode, did you guys see the part we included about how right off the bat, Larry McDonald's wife was saying, this was a conspiracy, my husband was murdered.
Yeah.
Okay? Then you have the KGB guys going, this wasn't about a military thing. This was the Russian Illuminati killing an airplane. He even thought it was to get that guy. Because if I'm Werner von Braun, or if I'm Neil Armstrong, or if I'm Gus Grissom, who might I go to? My son? My wife? Who could I go to with such astonishing information?
Truth. Yeah.
You're going to go to your boss?
No, you will be the people closest to you if you're going to reveal.
I just find it odd that to this day, Grissom's family claims he was murdered, and their story of this faulty wiring was totally made up. And it was the same way the 9/11 families spoke out. They're like, in our mainstream news, will say this is offensive to 9/11 families. But I can say this from experience because I know these families personally. None of them are offended by the truth. They all want it. They do agree on one thing. They're not getting it from the little television that's in all of our rooms. All right, any thoughts on the stuff? Is that
Man, it's pretty in depth. I mean, it's a lot of research to catch these points, Dave. Because I don't think, as say the average viewer, that you catch these things, But now, when you start seeing how there's keywords in media, like what we've watched over the past few years with politics, you hear in news reports where they repeat the same thing. Right, and I don't know if anyone's seen that Facebook video where it shows all the people, all the newscasters, same thing.
you
Same
can
thing.
actually sync up 100 local stations and they word for word across the whole nation.
It's teleprompter.
We
and
have a propaganda system.
Correct.
The only real journalism left in this world are people that are in our genre. We're not really on current events. We review history more than anything, but
Right, but when you go back and look at history and what's been revealed to us presently, that's where you can see it.
You
Oh,
would
dude.
apply it to today.
You're like, whoa, that didn't catch. Yeah, that didn't make any sense. You might have fallen for that in the '60s, but you don't fall for that in the 2000s. You know what I mean?
Right.
You don't. Or whatever. 2019. You don't fall for those things anymore.
What decade are we on anyway? I'm still used to going, dude, the 20th century.
Well,
like, yeah, that's an ancient time.
To be honest with you, I was never a great student. High school or middle school, where you're learning these things. I know
think,
it's force fed, but if you're not paying any attention, you're just trying to get that sweet D+.
You know what
I
I'm
mean?
starting to figure out? Is God, I think, is at work in your life even back then? Because honestly, what did being a great student get you?
Yeah, nothing.
It got you into a good college, and then what does that get you?
Debt.
Well, it ends up. Here's what you do: is if you get too much of an education, you will never find God. I'm sorry, dude. You will be so far indoctrinated and so full of the initials after your name, you won't even look. Trust me, because I was there forever. So he might make some of us F-ups when we're younger on purpose, knowing that. I wasn't looking at you.
I believe that. that part. But,
All right, let's look at some other strange things.
Sure.
Remember all this talk of rocks? I mean, we keep talking about all the way back to the Quran. Moons and the moon rocks. Very important thing.
The fifth element rocks.
They keep talking about the rocks in every newspaper article. And, well, it was very important because what did the astronauts do with these rocks? What do you think the American diplomats did with these rocks?
Set them on fire.
No, they
They
gave
won
them to
vote?
people.
Yeah, gave them away.
They gave them away to different ambassadors or from around the world.
Okay.
I would think.
So what's happening now is you got people
Souvenirs.
that
We
are
sold them.
that are growing up in the age of information who don't believe NASA really went to the moon, and they're now starting to occupy positions in the diplomatic offices of many other nations. So they've been checking out these
Petrified
rocks.
wood. Huh.
So far, every one of them
Is it fake?
has been petrified wood. And it's I'm just surprised that petrified wood could somehow get on the moon. What a dumb mistake someone made to choose a prop that wasn't even actually completely a stone. In a lot of ways, they don't see, when you lie big, you don't have to try very hard, because everyone assumes, oh, he might exaggerate. Okay, if he said he makes $100,000 a year, he probably makes $80,000 a year. We exaggerate things like that. You understand?
Right.
That's natural. But big lies. Oh, I got drafted by the Cowboys. That is more. Never mind. I'll tell you about my bar escapades later.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. So you noted I spent a lot of time in the last month or so getting really, really refamiliarized with NASA. One thing that makes it very hard to study about Apollo 11, humanity's first successful mission visiting another world. Do you know NASA's lost two things that were critical to that? What do you guys think they were?
The flag.
What?
No, critical to the mission.
Oh.
That they've lost something and it's critical to the mission.
So one is we've lost all the data. I'm going to show you.
Oh
a
yes,
video
that's
of
right.
that.
Yep, I know.
But
I've
you guys
seen
know
this.
that all the video of that mission is lost.
Yeah, re-recorded.
Come
right?
Started
on.
over.
Yeah, they ran out of tapes, right? And they didn't, so they recorded over them. It
I'm
was
sorry,
part of the
but, you know,
conversation.
That's like someone taking the U.S. Constitution,
We're all out of paper.
10 years in,
Yeah, right.
and using it to, you know,
Start a fire.
write down their list of to-dos. I'm just sorry, dude.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying. They got
It-
all this equipment and they don't have a VCR tape or
Well,
whatever.
and the
it is
major
back
budgets, you right? You couldn't send somebody down to get some new VHS tapes.
This is from, I think this is from Wired magazine. I could be wrong. Here, I'll just read you the first paragraph. This is 25 strangest mistakes in history. And Apollo 11 made the list of the 25 strangest. Guess what other events are on that list, by the way?
9/11.
It reads, while it was one of the most watched moments in television history, with more than 500 million viewers, Neil Armstrong's historic first steps on the moon, July 20th, 1969, were accidentally taped over. Now, if it was an accident, how do you tape over 100 reels of film? I'm sorry, just a question.
For sure.
I know we're not supposed to ask those these days. That's right. NASA admits that it erased its only high-resolution images of the first moonwalk to make room for electronic data from a satellite. They erased a lot more than that. Officials from the agency have concluded the data could have produced high-resolution images. So basically, they're saying the dog ate my homework. And then we've got some other articles and quotes from officials at NASA and outside of NASA basically saying this is utterly ridiculous. Okay. So an incredible story. They have no way now of proving it. And the more we learn about science and the more humanity has access to what scientists know, the less this story makes sense. And there's a little bit of a shift going on because philosophy is coming back because we lost it for a while.
Logos.
Philosophers were very important, literally up until about the 1900s, where there was this societal shift. And then this goes hand in hand with the oaths and the secrecy, right, that we talked about?
Yeah.
Because there's another thing. The image, if you saw a guy with glasses and a lab coat, is he smart in your opinion? Like
Typically, it's yes.
your mainstream media initial guttural impression, is that what a smart guy looks like?
Yeah.
Okay. What's funny is to read the writings of some of the smartest people of the day, including the philosophers of the day, who were beginning to sense this shift, that even at college levels in the early 1900s, we're beginning to sense this shift of specialization. And it's just interesting to see like the president of Princeton writing a letter to the president of Harvard in 1912 going, what is the rush to have these kids pick their craft in their first... They should learn a little of everything. Why this rush to specialization? And these two guys were agreeing with each other. But what and they're the presidents of... They're seeing this rush today. And who do we view as the smartest guys? Oh, well, that's Mark Zuckerberg, who has zero EQ. Who are the smartest guys? The scientists. The guys that are hyper successful, intelligent, and knowledgeable in their field. Like, I've got friends that are PhDs, MBAs, that are literally at the tops of their fields nationally. They write books that...
Peer reviews.
But to be honest with you, yes, they are experts at their little part of the world.
Correct. Yeah, you chose one study.
And they themselves, the best liar is ourselves. They've allowed themselves to get snowed into believing that because they're so smart in this one particular area of their field, everything else they think about is right. And that's part of the deception that's going on. Mm-hmm. And I know that because I got pulled out of that world where, the world I come from, if you can throw an MBA behind your name or a JD or so few good initials like that, it's going to make your business a little bit easier. Specialization. I mean, we've got kids going into highly technical programs at the age of 18.
STEM students.
It makes, a slave society needs scientific slaves too. that's how we get those. All right.
We're at 1 minute, Jimmy. All right.
So let's take a look. We're going to spend that last minute. NASA takes photographs or claims to take photographs. By the way, do you guys think an actual real photograph of complete single shot photograph of Earth actually exists anywhere in the world?
No, it's all CGI.
It was sort of a trick question.
Well,
guys
you
are
should
right,
be able to, though. With all the satellites that we have, they're out looking.
but there is none today. We did, however, supposedly get one in 1966. And this was not on a moon landing. I don't know which Apollo mission this was. All we did was go around the Earth. That's the first time we supposedly photographed the Earth. This is what was called the photograph of the century. This was the proof that Sir Fred Hoyle said just 20 years earlier, God, if we can ever get a picture of the Earth as a ball, it's going to change everything. So when they do give us pictures of the ball that they claim to be monitoring for us, right here on the left, that's the United States. We got Florida right where my mouse is. You got Mexico right here. You guys following me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, 3 years later, look how much the Earth shrank. Can you guys at least see that these pictures one of them can't be accurate? Do we agree on this?
I can agree on that.
Okay, that's all we needed to see.
Yeah.
Looks like they might have done the change between 2012 and 2013. Right? You guys see it there? United States. Right there, guys, is a reason. See, when someone gives me a reason not to trust them,
There you go.
I just about stop trusting them. Yeah, photos. These are all photographs from NASA. For you people listening that trust wholeheartedly, like our news and our government and our space agencies that really build the walls of your belief system, they've been telling you lies. You know that they've lied to you before. What you just don't know is how deep it goes. That's what we uncover on this show, and we're going to keep doing it every week. It is not to bring glory to ugliness and evil. At the end of the day, it's to show you that it's very real, because we are in real danger as a humanity and individually. And there is only one solution I know of that has ever been presented through history that's credible, and that is the gospel of Jesus Christ. Get to know who he is. The answers to all these problems are in there.
Have a
We'll see
great
you guys
Easter,
next
you
week.
guys.
Have a good night.